I am joined by my friend from Kick, Joe. Hello, Joe.
Hello, excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you on again. You always make me smile. Everyone I meet says, "Oh, isn't Joe great?" He puts a smile on your face, not laughing at you. You just make people feel better.
Oh well, Andy, you're very kind. And if that were ever true of me, it was twice as true of you. And,
Thank you.
yeah, excited to be here and have time with you and your amazing radio show.
Cool. Now we're talking about the book, which I know you released a little while ago. Before we get into all of that, you had a launch party, which I knew you also did. How did it feel to you having that launch party, standing there and saying, basically, because I wasn't there, I'm guessing, here's my book. I wrote this. Could you buy it? How does that work for you?
Yeah, well, we launched the book this year. It's just come out. It's on Amazon and it's available on Kindle and Audible. I mean, it's been amazing. So that whole process of writing the book through to publishing the book was so high octane that kind of launching the book, it was all a bit of a whirlwind. But what I did was I just invited friends, family, partners, uh, organizations, different people, as well as our staff team and trustees, to really celebrate with us stories of lives transformed. And, the, the book's sort of summary is a wild ride of calling, adventures, and a glorious God. And really, to launch the book was the icing on the cake because we had a story to tell about those three things: lots of adventures, lots of examples and testimonies, 40 different case studies, but ultimately to give glory to a glorious God. And so when we had the book launch, it kind of all somehow came together. We had 112 people come. We did it at our spiritual home, Holy Trinity Richmond Church. And essentially, the wonderful Phil Knox from the Evangelical Alliance, he came down, he compared it. He really took the reins and sort of interviewed me, got me to read a few extracts, and then opened it up to the floor for Q&A. And so that kind of, it all kind of just ran like clockwork. We had somebody who event organized it. She did a brilliant job, Maggie, and she got a cake with the kind of face of the book on it, and so that was really fun to give cake out at the end and have a celebration. But yeah, it was a special time. It was very humbling. But the main thing I wanted to reflect on was that this was a book of 40 authors, not just me. And so this was a celebration of what each person had contributed to the book: staff, present, past, trustees, present, past, volunteers, present, past, partners, present, past. But it was also really a book of testimony about what God had done in our organization. And so really it was as much his as it was ours.
Perhaps this isn't the official way of doing this, but I just thought it was more interesting to think about the launch because I know when I spoke to you before, you'd not written a book before, so that's a big deal. It's your very first book, and you're launching a book like that. I mean, there's a lot of work, but let's just, I mean, show us the book. What's the book called?
Yeah, yeah. So the book is called Kick's Story, and it's a summary of really 40 testimonies of what God has done in our organization across the last 20 years, lives of transformation with children, young people, but also how we've experienced some of the spiritual secrets that God has revealed to us as we've encountered Him along the journey. And if I give you an example, how I was called to come to Kick from being a principal of an outstanding school in Tower Hamlets, and I resisted it for a year, and then he really clearly spoke to me about stepping out in faith, and so I resigned, gave them 10 months to replace me, and in that time, I I sat down to watch The Passion of Christ on Good Friday, as any former film student might do. And as I was watching that film, I got I'd heard about this organization called Kick that did sport, mission, and education. And I thought, well, I'm trained in education, I believe in mission, and I really love sport. Maybe I should apply to them to see if they've got any jobs going. And then I thought, no, 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 it's Good Friday. I won't message them. I'll wait until Tuesday after the long bank holiday. So I sat back down to watch the film. I got up to grab a drinks break halfway through, and I checked my phone, and the chair of Kick had emailed me saying that their director had resigned the previous day. They'd met that morning to pray and talk about closing down the organisation. And whilst they were praying, would I ever consider leaving my job to come and work for them? I couldn't believe it. I said, "You've emailed me. I was about to email you." And so we went through a process, and it was just a part of knowing that I was called to come to Kick. And there are many other examples like that where God has just been moving different pieces of jigsaw together to enable mission to happen. It is thy kingdom come, not anybody else's. And what we've just found is that as God's brought together the organization, it's had his fingerprints all over it. And so there are a number of examples like that. We talk about some of the spiritual application of learning from Moses and the way he was called at the burning bush. As you may not have appreciated, I hadn't until I really looked into it. He was an unconvicted murderer, Moses. When he was called at the burning bush and God says, "You're standing on holy ground," he may have felt like at that moment, the game's up. I'm about to die for my crime. And yet, God calls him and answers the desires of his heart to free his people from slavery. And so, what a turnaround, but what a calling at the burning bush. That does not happen every day. And so, again, listening and obeying the call of God is really important for us all to understand the individual, unique works that we've all been called to do. And so, again, those things have just inspired us. And so, the way the book is designed is it's based around our 5 values: aspiration, compassion, excellence, intention, and integrity. And then each of those sort of 5 sections are split into 2 chapters each. One that has stories, for example, of aspiration, but also spiritual application of aspiration. 2 around compassion stories and spiritual application. And as we work through excellence and intention and integrity, each chapter, if you like, each section has those 2 chapters so that we're able to share stories today of what God has been doing and also look into some of the theological application of the way God works through Scripture. And so those things have, really inspired us to capture the book.
I think it probably, I know we've chatted before about you and about Kick, but just give us a bit of I suppose, a bigger overview. What is Kick all about? You've talked about sport and you talked about mission, but what's the day-to-day working of Kick?
Yeah, so our mission is to transform young people's lives with God's love through sport and support. And so what that simply means is that we go into schools and we do 4 things: physical education, so 25 different sports; transformational street dance, so 15 different dance disciplines; solutions-focused mentoring for the most challenging kids in the school; and then schools-based chaplaincy. And we've been really inspired with the way that work has grown in schools. And we've partnered with churches to train up volunteers to run extended sport or dance coaching in the evenings at the weekends, called Kick Academies, that are run by their volunteers and enable children and young people to not only experience our work in schools, but also through churches. And so it's been an exciting journey. We've grown from 7 staff to 97 in the last 8 years. And along that way, we have grown nationally from just being in 6 boroughs in London to being in 28 boroughs in London and 8 regions of the UK. And we now work with 30,000 853 young people a week. So it's been a miracle, really. And Kick's story gives you a few of the principles, a few of the stories along the journey, but most importantly, a little insight into some of the spiritual secrets of God's ways, how He is a master builder, for example. That's a whole chapter in the book about how He really cares about the plans He has for us. And you know, when He built the temple, He cared exactly about every single possible material that was used. Had to be gold for certain aspects, had to be silver for other aspects. It had acacia wood for other aspects. There were so many different facets. He was really, really focused on building accurately. And so God is a master builder. He builds masterfully in our own lives, and He has masterful plans for this world and His creation. And so again, it's really important that we don't assume that God is, for some reason, asleep on the throne and not caring and not wide awake. He is wide awake. He is always watching. We know that from Psalm 121. And He has plans, seasons, times, and we are inside His Bible message. You know, it's easy to think the Bible happened before and we're somehow beyond the Bible. We're absolutely not. We're inside that Bible narrative, and the end of time is to come. We're inside the plans that He's initiated, and the way He is holding everything together for the good of those who love Him, and working all things together for those who love Him and for His building of His kingdom. And so again, He is a master builder in all kinds of different ways. And really the book just sheds light on, in a very small way, the way that He's built with us, and how interesting that's been as we've tried to give Him the reins to build at the pace He wants to.
I guess another question that comes to mind, you've written the book, your first book. Why write a book? I mean, there are other things you could do. You could do series of newsletters, you could do talks. Why go for a book that people can buy and hold in their hands to read? What was the heart behind that?
So it's a great question. So I went away on a CEO retreat after working for Kick for 8 years. And I was with a number of other CEOs, and they just said, "Oh, how's Kick going?" And so I shared with them a few stories, and they said, "Wow, that's really amazing. You should write a book." And I laughed at this guy. I said, hilarious. What if it all went wrong? I'd look a complete moron, you know. I'd never write a book. So then that was in sort of the evening drinks of this 24-hour retreat. Then went for dinner and sat with different people, and they said, "Oh, how's Kick?" So I told them some stories, and they said, this is really amazing. You should write a book." And I said, "Oh, that's hilarious." No way. Absolutely not doing that. And then the next morning, I went for breakfast. Completely different set of people. Had a chat with them. "How's Kit?" Told them some stories. They said, "You should write a book." And at that moment, I thought, wow. I mean, nobody in my life has told me to write a book. And then 3 times in a weekend, that's unusual. And so I went away and prayed about it. And I talked about it with our chair of trustees. And he said, "I know this great guy that could help you write it." And I thought, wow. I mean, I would have thought, he may have thought, "Oh, no, don't do this. It's distraction." But he was really supportive. And so as I prayed about it, I began to think, if we don't write a book, all these testimonies, all this learning, all these spiritual secrets that we began to understand will be lost in the annals of time. If we don't capture them, what a shame. These testimonies that have meant a lot to us, I'll forget them. Other people will forget them. In fact, in writing the book, I've learned new stories I'd never have known about if I hadn't gone on that journey. And so what's lovely is that for those that have bought a copy of the book, and we've sold 600 copies so far, the feedback to me has been, these stories have meant something to me. these stories have been eye-opening, and these have really encouraged me in my walk with God, that God cares for young people and builds His kingdom today, not just in the past. And so, as I say, why write the book? Well, I felt it was a God incidence that three times in a day, or a 24-hour period, somebody said, write a book. And so when we started the book writing course, uh, it was amazing. I mean, it was a 10-week course, and you spend 3 weeks preparing, and then you spend 6 weeks writing, and then a bit of time afterwards editing. And you got the draft manuscript of a book. I mean, it was amazing. And I couldn't believe how quickly it was possible to write a book, but it really was. And I've been astonished as well. People have been saying, "Oh, books will go out of fashion." Da, da, da. More books are written today than ever in history. And so again, books would continue to be popular. But for us, I guess the book is a cultural artifact of Kick's story, and so is valuable to us both uh, today, but also for staff joining our organisation to know uh, a bit about our history and our roots. And I hope that that always continues to give glory to God.
I feel about CDs and music the same way I do about magazines online and in print, or books online and in print. We know we can buy a CD. We know we can go on to, there's all sorts of streaming services, and you can listen to your music. But here's the thing we've discovered: sometimes those CDs, well, one, they're better quality, it sounds better at home. Two, the music that you've listened to isn't suddenly on the streaming service because there's been a reason it's gone, so you now can't listen to it. It doesn't sound the same. Yeah, we know you can, but CDs, they are still better. I mean, cassette tapes in the day, or vinyl before that. And it's the same with books or magazines. I mean, I create a magazine every month, and it goes out in print and online. And people say, well, but the online one's really cheap and free. Well, yeah, and we made it free for everybody. But do you know what? I like holding something in my hand in the same way I've got books, which I've got favorite pages. Brother Andrew from Open Doors, those books have got double creases as I've got points I'm trying to remember. And you cannot do that and engage digitally in exactly the same way as you can physically or audibly with a CD. And this is the thing: I love digital. I run a digital radio station and a digital magazine. I also like CDs, and I think they're better. And I also like things you can print and hold, because it becomes part of your own home culture.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And again, there are different things, aren't there? I've found all my Bible reading now, I do on my iPad, because I can easily highlight, cut and paste into notes to then prepare for talks and sermons. So it's one of those funny things, but equally there is something about holding the Bible in your hand and reading through it, turning the pages. There's something. Again, it's good to have a mixed economy, isn't it? Lots of different options and
Yeah.
ways. We're very fortunate to have so many opportunities. But again, it's where we wrote the book, we wanted to have a Kindle version as well as a soft copy version, a hard copy version, um, as well as an audible audio book. And so again, these were important things for us to put together, because in my reading as a dyslexic, I personally find I as an audio or audible learner, I can listen at twice the speed or one and a half the speed than I can read in, if you like, in with a paper copy. So it was important for me as a neurodiverse person to embrace audiobooks, because in the last 3 years I've had a reading revolution. I previously would maybe read one or two books a year. Uh, so I set myself a goal to try and read 12 books in a year. And I found audiobooks. And so I managed to do a book a month. And I was so proud of myself. I did 12 in a year. I couldn't believe it. And then I set myself the same target the following year, and I read 52. I read a book a week. I couldn't believe it. And then last year, I thought, well, I'll maybe try and match that target of 50 books. I read 75. I felt so liberated by being able to reclaim time when I would have been driving on the train, on the tube, gardening, walking somewhere that would might have been dead time to be listening to a book. And so again, it's had a new lease of life for me reading through writing a book and looking, as you say, at these diverse types of media that that there's a special place now for maybe different ones of us in different types of media, isn't there? And as I say, my personal favorite now is audiobooks.
Which is great. I'm trying to get the book I published last September on audiobook. We're not quite there, but I want to give people options. I love a book I can hold. I love
Yeah.
listening to radio. I love music, and we have streaming services in the house. But I also like a CD that I can stick on because it's like an old friend, or
Yeah.
opening that book that has a certain smell because you killed a fly with it that one day and there's a little smudge. It brings back memories.
Wow. Wow. We're fully sensory people, aren't we? And
Oh, and
smell and
then
touch,
some.
it's certainly all those kind of things trigger deep memories, don't they? And no, I'm right with you. It's a family friend, the book.
Yeah. But the fact we can offer other options for people is brilliant. Like yourself, with dyslexia, the ability to listen is important. I can skim read really fast. I can just look through a book and I know the page. Not everyone has that skill. I don't even know where that one came from. But I mean, Audible, I like listening.
Yeah. What a gift. It's a real blessing to have that. And I fully agree. It's about finding your place in the way you want to read and not letting other things hold you back. Like as I say, I thought I'd never have read The Lord of the Rings, and now I've read all three of them. And I what a treat, but it's a good 24 hours audiobook each one of those. But it was great to get through them and not be overawed by it.
In terms of the book, you're talking about finding your place. Why would we want that book to find a place in our lives and our heart? How is that going to help us?
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, if I could just tell you some of the things that people said about the book, that might be helpful. So Warren Evans, CEO of Sports Chaplains UK, he said, Kick Story is a must read for anyone involved in youth work, sports ministry, or community service, exemplifying what's possible when faith is put into action. Or Ruth Jackson from Premier, she said, Kick's journey will inspire anyone passionate about the emerging generation that change is possible, hope is coming, and joy can be experienced in the present. And then Les Isaacs, founder of Street Pastors, he said, if we are going to reach this generation of young people, we need vision, faith, and action. Kick Story is a challenging and inspirational journey. And so, again, I think that's encouraging that other people have read it and felt that way about it. And so, again, my hope would be that this would uh, be a book of transformation, a book that would encourage about what God has done through Scripture, but also what God has been doing in the recent past with Kick, but most importantly, what God wants to do with you today and those around you to transform a generation of young people. And again, that would be something that I hope would be inspiring for each of us.
I just wanted to touch on the stories that you've included because you said it's not just one author, it's like 40 authors in the book,
Yeah.
plus the person who wrote it. How did you go about finding them? If you got like, emails, here's what I think, and you just were able to transcribe it in, or did you have to go around and meet people? How did that come about?
Yeah, no, well, what was lovely was I lined up a load of case studies, some that I knew and some that I sort of reached out to people and said, could you tell me your favorite story of your time at Kick or when God did X? And and what was lovely, we had many of our current brilliant staff contribute and trustees, but also I reached out to former trustees, founding trustees and coaches of the organisation. One of our former coaches who's now a pastor in Bavaria, in Germany, and it was just lovely, so lovely to hear back from them a number of the stories. And there was one story that I really wanted to share with you, which was from a former coach who's now in Portsmouth. His name is Davy Murphy, and I'll read this to you if that's okay. It's he worked with the mentee who had existential depression, and I'll just read this extract that he put together. Uh, Existential depression meant my mentee was distressed about the existence of life. It took time to build trust, but once this was established from a place of compassion, she opened up to me that she had left her house at midnight, gone to a bridge overlooking a dual carriageway to throw herself off. She got cold feet and decided to go home. She'd been suicidal for 6 months, and this was the first person that she'd told. Davy was able to affirm her value and work with the school to make sure there was an entire team to support her when she got home that day. When they next met, Davy was nervous about how she would react, that he had to escalate the situation, but she thanked him. She said, "That was the first time in my life I knew someone cared that I was alive." Over the next 18 months, Davy continued to mentor her through to the end of her GCSEs. In their final mentoring session, she wrote him a card which said, "Thank you for giving me a reason to live." It is not always that one's work is life or death, but that day we were reminded that at Kick, sometimes our work is a matter of life or death. And so again, those kind of stories, are captured in this book. And as I say, they've come from an array of people, past and present, that have been connected with us. But they capture some of the essence of what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is really difficult. To transform a young person's life is not simple. It requires hard work and effort, but it also requires prayer and God's engagement. And so again, we were very moved by that story.
And I think it's demonstrating a whole bunch of stuff. The fact that there are some serious needs out there that we don't know what people are walking through. We don't, I mean, what's the phrase? Walk a mile in someone else's shoes is really important because we just don't know. The Sunday smile, maybe it's a bit more Christianese, but we as Christians know how to turn up to a church. How are you doing? Oh, I'm great. Isn't it lovely? And we know how to phrase that. It's a lie. It's not helpful. I remember conversely when I went to a church and I was feeling dreadful, and someone said, "How are you?" Utterly awful. Oh, jolly good. On you go, because they asked a question and didn't listen for the answer, and I just was left standing. I actually got the courage to speak up. So I was so happy to hear of people like you've had working with Kick who asked the question, willing to listen to the answer, and actually action a response to that, because it's not enough just to hear people. We
Yeah.
need to actually be people of action. It's not enough to pray for someone. Prayer should always lead us into action, to doing something. It's never just a passive thing. So it's so encouraging to hear that, yeah, life and death really is an issue. Young people are facing mental health issues. I know I've heard people in their sort of 40s saying, "Oh, well, that's just nonsense. They don't know real pressures." And yeah, they really do, actually. And pressure has changed, and life has changed. The world has changed. Ethics have changed. Expectation has changed. The speed of information transfer and overload is so easy that it has changed. So life is different. And we need to ask a question and wait for the answer and be willing to respond with courage, to think, well, if I say something, I might lose the trust of this person. But do you know what? Their safety has to trump right now that, which is what we do in safeguarding. We understand that. There are certain things you don't retain, you have to share with somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's only appropriate. So, yeah, I think that sums up a lot of what I've picked up from the very small bits of pieces I've got from Kick, of people who care, people with compassion. Hey, that's all we need, really.
It's an inspiring value for us. And it's compassion. I did a bit of research into compassion because it's one of our core values, and it's a specific aspect of love, um, in in showing comfort, and again to those that need it, and again it's something that really describes, I think, the people that we try to work with at Kick. We did a funny piece of consultancy. We had this free consultant come and work with us, and they looked at our brand personality as an organization, which I thought was very funny. What is, if Kick was a person, what are we like as people? It was quite a funny thing. And they used something called Jung's 12 archetypes. And the three that were most clear to us were hero, caregiver, and magician. And I found that really funny. I said, well, hero, okay, we're about transforming lives. We're about saving young people. I get the hero. We're these role models, to kids that maybe come from fatherless homes, and we're doing fun stuff like sport and street dance. I get that kind of hero one. But the caregiver ties into this compassion piece, that we want to love and comfort and encourage and challenge and help with care those that we're working with. That really ties into our chaplaincy and mentoring. So caregiver was very clear. But I thought, why magician? What is going on with magician? I thought it was so weird. And then it dawned on me, that's God's bit. He's the one that brings the magic and the change and the transformation. And so that really, I thought, yes, that's his personality part as within our organization. He's the one that brings the miracles. And so again, that was something that I didn't want us to lose sight of. That magic aspect is his.
Amen to that. Just remind us of the book, the title, and where can people get hold of this?
And so it's called Kick's Story, and it's written by me, Joe Lowther, as I say, with lots of other people included. I've pulled it all together, and it's available in many different Christian bookshops across the country, and it's also available on Amazon. And if you order it today, it'll be with you tomorrow. It's an incredible processing system at Amazon. They will, if you order it today, they will print it tonight, and it'll be in your house tomorrow. So really remarkable approach. Or you can download it on Kindle, and the audio book version will be coming out shortly. So again, we're very grateful to have launched it just in the past year, and I hope it is a blessing to each reader.
Joe, from Kick and writer, now author extraordinaire of Kick Story. Thank you, mate.
Thank you very much. It is a real treat to be a part of this, Andy, and wish you and all the team and all the family well.